It seems that David had been hunted by Saul for a number of years when the pressure began to tell upon him. In chapter 22, the hunt was on. By the end of chapter 24, after David spared Saul's life, it was off. At the start of chapter 26, it was on again. But when once again David spared Saul's life, Saul called it off. What was going to happen next? Let's read about it in 1 Samuel chapter 27 and verses 1 and 2. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish the son of Maoch, king of Gath. I've often thought of people who have had to endure problems that just seem to go on and on. I have Christian friends who have been plagued with ill health for months and years, and in some cases even for decades. It's easy to understand how people might crack under the relentless stress of such a situation. Mind you, I greatly admire the faith and fortitude of the many whose trust in God continues to grow day by day. My late wife Elizabeth used to quote time and again, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me, or who keeps pouring his strength into me. Philippians 4 verse 13. It is a blessed resource that every Christian has. Now in this chapter, David was feeling the pressure. Time and again he had to flee as Saul's army closed in on him. But time and again the Lord guided him and protected him. Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. Verse 14 of chapter 23. Saul promised not to harm David, but then broke his word and started the chase once again. As the days went by, David began to think, it's only a matter of time. When he spoke these words, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul, verse 1 of our chapter. David lost sight of the Lord and became taken up with his circumstances. His focus began to waver. We cannot be too hard on David, mind you, because we all know how easy it is for that to happen in our own lives. Instead of the familiar words that David inquired of the Lord that we read in chapter 23, David decided to take the situation into his own hands, and it led him to go and live with the enemies of God's people. We might say it was simply out of the frying pan into the fire, as we shall see in a later video. How appropriate are the words of David's son Solomon. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. Proverbs 3 verse 5. Paul warned about the danger of focusing on our circumstances whenever he wrote, we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7. What we see with our eyes is always changing, but what we grasp by faith is always constant. The Lord wants us to rely on Him, even when we feel so strongly the need to do something about our situation. He shall not fail, is what Isaiah says in 42 verse 4. And I love the promise that the Lord gave to Peter. I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. Luke chapter 23. May the Lord help us to know what it is to have an unfailing faith in the one who is our unfailing Saviour. He will not let us down.